Merit goods. In the case of some products, there is both a problem of information failure and a problem of social benefits or costs being greater than the private benefits or costs. Merit goods are products that are more beneficial to the consumers than they themselves realize and that have benefits for those who are not involved in their consumption directly, that is called external benefits. This failure of the consumers to acknowledge the true value to themselves and to others means that these products will be underconsumed and hence underproduced, if left to market forces. Healthcare is an example of a merit good. For instance, some people may not recognize the importance of regular medical checkups and or visiting a doctor. Hence, they are unlikely to take into account the benefits of their fitness to others. The associated external benefits may include higher output as a result of workers having less time off work, hence being more productive, and prevention of spread of diseases. For instance, some people may not recognize the importance of regular medical checkups and or visiting a doctor. Hence, they are unlikely to take into account the benefits of their fitness to others. The associated external benefits may include higher output as a result of workers having less time off work, hence being more productive, and prevention of spread of diseases. There are various measures that a government may adopt to overcome the problem of a lack of consumption. In the case of merit goods, one is providing information on the of consuming the products. If successful, there be an increase in demand. In the absence of an increase in demand, the government may need to try another approach. Figure the demand will exist left to market forces DD and demand based on the full benefits to society, DX. To persuade consumers to purchase the allocatively efficient quantity of QX, the price of the product needs to fall to P1. Figure 3b shows this being achieved, as a result of a subsidy, shifting the supply curve to the right. If a government thinks that consumers undervalue the product significantly or there are considerable external benefits, it may provide the product free to consumers and or make its consumption compulsory. For example, inoculation against a range of diseases is provided free, and the wearing of seat belts in cars is compulsory in the UK. Demerit goods, as their name suggests, demerit goods are the opposite of merit goods. Demerit goods are more harmful to consumers than they realize and they generate external costs. For example, cigarettes are a demerit good. Some people do not fully realize the damage smoking inflicts on their health. Their smoking also imposes costs on people around them by polluting the air, causing a number of them to develop cancer through passive smoking and generating litter. Demerit goods are overconsumed and hence overproduced. To tackle this problem, a government could raise their price by imposing a tax on them. It could also seek to discourage consumption by providing information about their harmful effects. Also, if it thinks that the consumption of certain products causes serious problems, it may ban them. Recently a number of countries, including the countries of the UK and Ireland, have imposed a ban on smoking in public places. This measure is designed not only to discourage smoking but also to protect the health of non-smokers. Other measures that governments use to reduce include government-sponsored health campaigns, placing health warnings on packets of cigarettes, taxation and banning the advertising of cigarettes. Bhutan has gone further than most countries in the purchase of cigarettes in the country. By 2004, the National Assembly of Bhutan, which was then a monarchy, banned the sale of tobacco throughout the country as well as smoking in public places, private offices and even recreation centers like bars and pubs. It was lauded for being the first country in the world to go entirely smoke-free. Public goods are goods and services which are provided by government because everyone benefits from them, even if they do not pay for them, are called public goods. The degree of market failure is greater in the case of public goods 2 and demerit goods. Too few merit goods and many demerit goods will be produced if left to market forces. No public goods would be made.
We introduced public goods and the terms non-excludable and non-rival. In this video, we'll explain what these terms mean and why public goods can challenge markets. Non-excludable means that people who don't pay cannot be easily prevented from using the good. Genes are excludable and asteroid deflection is non-excludable because it's easy to prevent people who don't pay for genes from using the genes. But it's hard to prevent people who don't pay for asteroid deflection from benefiting from asteroid deflection. If the asteroid is prevented from hitting the Earth, everyone's going to benefit, whether they paid for it or not. Non-rival means that one person's use of the good doesn't reduce the ability of another person to use the good. Genes are rival and asteroid deflection is non-rival because if one person is using a pair of genes, it's pretty difficult for another person to use the same genes at the same time. But asteroid deflection is non-rival because if one person is using asteroid deflection, that doesn't reduce the ability of another person to benefit from the same asteroid deflection. For asteroid deflection, the more the merrier. In fact, these two categories, non-excludable and non-rival, divide goods into 4 possible types. Let's look at the most familiar category first, goods that are excludable and rival. These are the private goods, jeans, hamburgers, contact lenses, and so forth. Markets are great at providing these goods because excludability means that only people who pay get the good. So consumers have an incentive to pay. And producers, therefore, have an incentive to produce these goods. Rivalry means that excluding non-payers doesn't waste resources because it costs more to produce more of these goods. And we only want to supply more when people are willing to pay the additional cost. We covered this earlier in the Equilibrium chapter. Click to go back and review. Now let's turn to public goods, non-excludable and non-rival. We've already given asteroid deflection as one example. National defense and mosquito control are other examples. Let's think about national defense. Is it excludable? Suppose we try to use markets to provide national defense. If some people bought a nuclear missile to deter another country, that deterrence benefits everyone, even those who don't pay. We sometimes refer to the nuclear umbrella to reflect the idea that it's hard to exclude people from the benefits of national defense. Since it's hard to exclude non-payers, there's an incentive not to pay and to try to free ride. But if everyone free rides and doesn't pay, then national defense doesn't get produced. Now, is national defense rival or non-rival? Does one person's benefiting from national defense reduce my benefit? No. So national defense is non-rival. Public goods, those goods which are both non-excludable and non-rival, therefore provide a challenge to markets. We'll be saying more about the 2 other cases, common resources, non-excludable but rival, like tuna in the ocean, and club goods, excludable but not rival, like Wi-Fi, in future videos. For now, we're going to say a little bit more about public goods and how to produce them. Public goods challenge markets because non-excludability means that it's difficult to charge non-payers, the free rider problem. In addition, non-rivalry means that it's inefficient to exclude anyone. Why exclude when there's no cost to serving an additional consumer? So how can we produce public goods? These goods provide an argument for taxation and government provision. After all, if these goods are valuable, but markets have trouble producing them, we'd like some other way to produce these goods. But there's a problem. How do we decide which public goods and how much of them and in what ways to produce these goods? For private goods, we know that under the right conditions, there's an invisible hand process which leads to the maximization of social surplus. So can voting and other democratic procedures work as well in providing public goods as markets do in providing private goods? Probably not. The problem here is there is no invisible hand theorem for public goods. Here's a way of thinking about the difficulty of providing public goods. We know that under the market system there's a problem because there are free riders, people who don't pay even though they benefit. But under the government-provided system, there's a symmetric problem. Forced riders, people who are forced to pay through taxation when they don't benefit, or people who are forced to pay by more than they benefit. These two twin problems are equally important, and it's difficult to solve either of them. To maximize the value of public goods, we want to minimize free riders and minimize forced riders. But there's no invisible hand process that makes this happen automatically or smoothly. We're going to have to muddle through with the sometimes kind of messy political process. In addition, in the market, entrepreneurs are always trying to discover new private goods or new ways of producing private goods at lower cost. In the political process, it's just much less clear who the entrepreneurs are and whether they have the right incentives to discover new public goods or new ways of producing public goods at lower cost. Nevertheless, public goods are still important, so sometimes muddling through is just going to be the best that we can do. One final point about terminology. A public good, as we've said, is a good which is non-excludable and non-rival. A public good is not defined as a good that is produced by the government or the public sector. After all, if the government started to produce jeans, that would not make jeans a public good. Mail delivery is provided by the government, but it's not a public good. Asteroid deflection, it is a public good, but actually very little of it is provided by government. So just keep the definition in mind. A public good is a good which is non-excludable and non-rival.
As mentioned earlier, private sector firms will not have any incentive to make products they cannot charge. It is not possible to exclude non-payers from enjoying the benefits of products others can consume without paying for, such as street lights. Those who do take advantage in this way are called free riders. For example, if a flood defense is built to protect a coastal town, all homes in the area would be protected whether their owners are prepared to pay for it or not. Besides non-excludability, public goods have another characteristic. This is non-rivalry. This means that consumption of the product by one more person does not reduce someone else's ability to consume it. For example, one more person walking down a lit street does not reduce the benefits that other people receive from the street lights. Most products, including merit and demerit goods, are private goods. These products are both rival and excludable. In these cases, it is possible to stop non-payers from enjoying the products, and if one person consumes a unit of the product, someone else cannot. For example, I cannot take a computer out of a shop without paying for it, and if I do buy it, no one else can have that particular computer, even though primary education, secondary education, and healthcare are not directly charged for in some countries. They are nevertheless private goods. This is because they can be charged for, and also because they are rival goods, in some cases. If one child is occupying a place in a class or one patient is occupying a hospital bed, no one else can occupy these places. Of course, education and healthcare are examples of a special type of private goods, that is merit goods. Markets will supply private goods, although not necessarily in the right quantities. They will not, however, supply public goods. This means that public goods have to be financed through taxation. The government can then produce them itself or pay a private sector to produce them. Abuse of market power. Market failure can arise due to producers having more market power than consumers. If one firm dominates a market, it may not be allocatively, productively or dynamically efficient. It will lack competitive pressure to respond to consumer demands, to keep its costs low and to improve its product. If it is the only firm selling the product, consumers will have no choice but to buy from it. Even if the price of the product is high, the product is not in accordance to the needs of the consumers and its quality is poor. Abuse of market failure can also occur when there is more than one firm producing the product. If there are, for instance, 5 major producers in a market, there is a risk that they may plan to reduce competition. For example, they may all agree to charge the same high price. This is referred to as price fixing. There are various ways through which governments try to promote competition and prevent firms from abusing their market power. These include removing restrictions on the entry of new firms into a market and making uncompetitive practices such as price fixing illegal. They may also stop some firms from merging, i.e., joining together to form one new firm, if it is thought that the merged firm will act against the interests of consumers by charging high prices and producing poor quality products.
Have you ever shopped for an appliance, a book, or another good that is sold at many stores? If you have, then you may have noticed that the price is typically the same among the different retailers. While the same price is not proof that illegal price fixing occurred, it does raise questions about price fixing. Antitrust laws make it illegal for manufacturers to agree to manipulate the price of an item. For example, manufacturers can suggest a retail price, and retailers can decide whether or not to charge that price, but an agreement cannot be made between the parties. Similarly, retailers cannot decide among themselves to all charge a certain price for a certain item. Price fixing has been made illegal to encourage the free market to set prices based on supply and demand. If you own a business, then it's important to remember that price fixing is not the way to bring in customers. In fact, it can have the opposite effect. It can destroy your business.